So let's talk about buying versus renting your books, and then if you're buying them, reselling them. And I remember when I was in school, I hated, one of the things I hated was feeling ripped off by the school as far as books go. I remember once buying a book that cost $150. It was a textbook. I took it back to sell it back at the end of the semester, and they wanted to give me $15 for it, and I'm like, 50? Are you kidding? And I kept the book just out of spite, and I just remember being very upset because they changed it. They're like, oh, they're not going to be using that edition next year. It's the same edition, and the laws of accounting, basic economics, all that stuff doesn't change from year to year, but they change the editions and they come out with new books so that way they can make a lot of money selling you $100, $200 textbooks. So I really hated that, and I think that a lot of people had complaints about that, and which is why they came up with the whole renting a book concept now that exists that didn't exist back when I was in school. But as far as renting versus buying versus renting, so I'm going to give you some pros and cons of both, and you can make the decision on what best suits you. So as far as buying a book, let's talk about renting a book first. As far as renting a book, the pros are, number one, you're going to get it typically about 50% cheaper, sometimes even more than that, maybe 60 to 70% cheaper than you're going to get it buying it brand new, or even buying it maybe used. So that's one of the pros. Another pro is if you know the book's not going to be used again next semester or next year, and you know you're not going to be able to sell it back, then it would be a good idea, obviously, to rent the book, because you're not going to be able to sell it back if you're not going to keep it. Some cons, that's really the basic pros of renting, that you're going to get it cheaper and you can give it back. The cons are, if you change your mind like mid-semester, if you're like, you know what, I think I want to keep this book, you have to give it back. And if you don't give it back, you get charged the full price of the book, and you get a fee for the book or something like that. So the point being is you can't change your mind. You really can't write or highlight in the book, because they want you to return the book in the same condition that you got the book. So if you damage the book, if you drop the book in a puddle, you drop all your books in the snow or something like that, or something happens where it gets damaged, you're going to have to pay for the full price of the book, or you're going to have to you're going to pay more money, which doesn't pay off. And also, if the worst thing is, no one goes into classes going, oh, I'm going to fail this class. I mean, no student ever starts the semester off saying, okay, here's some classes I'm going to fail. But I heard that occasionally students have to retake a class, and even if you don't fail the class, you might want to get a better grade in the class, so you might want to retake the class. But if you rent your books, then you got to re-rent the same book again. You got to pay twice for the same book, and so those are the especially if you're taking really hard classes your freshman year. Sometimes things happen. So those are the pros and the cons of renting. As far as buying the books go, pros. First off, it's yours, so you can highlight it, you can draw on it, you can use it as a sled in the winter time. You can do whatever you want with the book. It's yours. If you decide to sell your books back, sometimes it ends up meaning that you spent less on the book than actually renting the book. So what do I mean? So let's say it's a $170 textbook, and you rent it. To rent it, to buy it, it'll be $170. To rent it, it'll be $50. But let's say you buy it for $170 and you sell it back for $150 or $140. Well, you're still making better money on the you paid less for the book than renting it. So so you got to look at the buyback option. So it can be cheaper to actually buy the books and resell them than to actually rent them. Another pro is if someone else is paying for your books. My first 2 years of college, my parents paid for the books. I wasn't on scholarship yet, and so my parents paid for the books, and they said, okay, I'd say I need $600 for books, and they would go, are you kidding me? And it was a shock to them. It's always a shock to parents how much books cost. So they would give me the money for the books. I'd buy the books, and at the end of the semester, I would sell them back, and they let me keep the money. Actually, I just didn't tell them about it. But point being is I got to keep the money from, so if your parents are paying for the books and they don't mind you keeping the money from selling them back, because you're going to need the books anyway, so be it. That's a way for you to get some money there. Also, if you're a scholarship athlete, like when I did get a scholarship, I remember some of my teammates would get a scholarship for books, and they would take 7 or 8 classes. They would take classes they weren't going to take, and then they would get the books for the class and then sell them back to the school and make money on them. So that's something that's the appropriate thing to do, but that's what they did, and that's how it went. So if you're on a scholarship and you know it's not gonna cost you anything for the books, and you're gonna be able to sell it, like they just give you the money for the scholarship for your books, and you go buy your books, and they don't care if you sell them back and they make the money back. You don't have to give the money back to the school if the scholarship covers books. So you're good there. Another thing is when you sell your books back, usually the end of the college semester is, you know, right around Christmas time and the beginning of the summer. So, you know, by selling the books back, when you buy the books and you resell them, you can use that money for your Christmas presents. I remember I used to always use my book money for Christmas presents, or right when you get ready to go into the summer, you have some money from your book sales to kind of float you between ending the semester and finding a summer job, you know, for gas and you know, just food and that kind of stuff. So that's another thing with the books, whereas if you didn't have the money, if you had the money in the beginning of the semester, you probably would have spent it. Also, well, some cons, as far as, so those are the pros. Some cons, they tend to be a little bit more expensive buying the books versus renting in general. Again, you have to do kind of a little bit of research there. And if they do change the edition on you, then you selling the book back is only going to get you, you know, 10% of what you paid, as opposed to a lot more money there. So those are the pros and the cons. You kind of have to weigh them out. Usually people will rent books more when they're freshmen and sophomore years, when they're taking a lot of classes that are not in their field, and they're just taking the electives and all the extra classes. So they end up not wanting to keep the books ever. Once you get to your junior and senior year, especially if you're taking something where it's like art history, if that's your major, or if you're going to be doing accounting or you know, something specific to your field, you know, marketing books you might want to look back on, or business books, or, you know, doctorate books, or, you know, that kind of stuff. So if you're doing into those fields, then you might want to keep the books, and as you get into junior and senior year, you might want to keep those books. So usually you rent more in the beginning of your college life than at the end. But a couple tips for buying books. If you are insistent on buying brand new books, right? You're like, I don't care about the money. I want brand new books, and that's just the way you are. Fine, cool. You can do that. I will tell you. I will give you this tip at least, right? If you buy your books brand new, do not take them out of the shrink wrap or open them until after your first day of class. All right. I had a student who bought their books way in advance. You know, they had their class schedule done online, and they looked online. They found out the books. They went to the school bookstore, and they looked at the school, and they went and said, "I'm just gonna buy my books." They bought like a month in advance. So they bought their books. They opened them up. They're like, "I'm gonna start reading ahead of." They went to class. They had spent $210 on the 3 books for that class, and the first day the professor said, "Hey, by the way, just to save you guys money, I just want to let you know, don't bother buying the books. You're not going to need them. We're not going to do anything with those books anyway. You're just going to take the notes from class." So needless to say, that person was not happy about that. So where everyone else was like, "Yay!" So don't take them out of the shrink wrap, because at least then you can at least try to return them and get your money back. Another tip and key, is you really should not buy books from the bookstore of your school. It's just, back in the day, you had no other options. Now with the internet, you know, you don't have to spend that kind of money. They really do take a lot more money from you by buying the books at your bookstore at your school. So so here's some websites that will be very helpful. Half.com is a very good one, and Amazon.com. You've probably heard of Amazon. Half.com is an affiliate of eBay, and one of the great things I like about that particular website is when you go on there, it'll tell you, you know, book brand new. You know, this is brand new, still in the shrink wrap, blah blah blah. There'll be like a like new condition, new condition. You know, close to new or slightly used. You know, you have a bunch of different categories that you can look at, and you can see the prices right there and what people are selling the books for. As far as that goes, and Amazon.com, you know, people selling their books on there too. I like using these sites. There are tons of sites, by the way. As I've gone through a lot of videos looking into books, there are 100 sites. I've seen, if I see, you know, 50 videos, I'll see, you know, 25 different sites mentioned on finding books. But these are the 2 ones that I recommend, just because they have policy. They're very well standing. You know, eBay and Amazon have been doing it for a very long time. They have policies and fail safes against, you know, you getting scammed, you not getting the books, you know, the books turning out to be not what they advertise, getting the books like late, you know, and getting them 3 weeks after your class starts and you're wondering where your book is, all that kind of stuff. So these sites have they've been working out the iron out the kinks in there, and there's repercussions to the people if they don't send you the books or all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you find some kind of side site, or just weird site that is just put together, you don't have the same kind of fail safes in place. The difference between buying a book in a bookstore and buying it off of like half.com or Amazon, you can get a book for 40 to 80% cheaper on these websites, on both of those websites. The difference between these two websites that I recommend and going to another website, searching around the website, you might save yourself $5-10, tops, as far as it goes, as far as how much cheaper they're going to be, and you're just going to waste a lot of time, and you don't have the same reassurances that you would using these two websites. So these are the ones that I would recommend. Also, I put these websites below, so you'll see them in the link down there. So you can actually just go right to the link right off of this page and go to these websites. So here's the strategy. So what you should do, if you like, is go to the website, get your syllabus. Go to your bookstore. Do not take any money with you. Don't take your card. That way you don't make any impulse buys. Right? So you just go to the bookstore with pen and paper, and you take your syllabus, or you take your class schedule, and you can ask them for help even if you need to look. But they'll usually have a code for what book goes to what class, and then you go find the books. And on the back of each book, here's what. By the way. This is one of those books that cost me a bunch of money. My accounting book, the accounting class I took twice. This was a book that they wanted to give me like 10% of what the book cost, and I was like, nope, I'd rather keep it. And I've never looked at it again. But on the back of each book, I don't know if you can see it, but there's what's called an IBSN number. An ISBN number, ISBN, which stands for International Standard Book Number. That's what it is. All right. So you'll see that number. It's usually a bunch of digits, as you'll see there, and you just write those numbers down on the books that you need to get. And so what'll happen is that you get all the ISBN numbers. You come back to this website. You might even want to bookmark this particular page, this page that you're watching right now, in your bookmarks. That way you can come right back to this page without going and searching for this. And then you just go right to the links down below, either half or, well, actually what I would do is I would open up half.com and I would open up Amazon side by side. So just click in both links, put them side by side, do a search by the ISBN number, and that way you can see all the prices. You can see the used, not used, brand new prices. You can see all the prices right there, and you can order all your books. It'll take you, a couple minutes right online, and you'll have your books pretty fast. So just by doing that, you'll save yourself $100 to sometimes even up to $400 or even more, depending on the kind of books that you're buying and depending on your major. You'll be saving that much money every semester, and you're talking about obviously 2 semesters for a year, so you're saving a good amount of money just on your books there. Take that money, invest it in something good. All right, so some tips on renting books or buying books.